This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 789 for the week of Monday, October 2nd, 2023. My name is Steven.
And my name is Greg. Oh, did I
that was
step
it.
on you for the?
That was it.
Did I just make this awkward from the get-go?
That we both did. We're still new at this. We've only been doing it for 10 times now, something like that. Give us another 779. This is an SGS week. We're off on the manga, and there's not a lot else going on in terms of stuff to cover and talk about. I mean, there's lots of other stuff, but we've managed to kind of compartmentalize everything into its own unique podcast at this point. So we're taking over this week. And I think it's going to be kind of a normal SGS. And that would be, of course, the Simba, Greg, and Steven segment where we basically just shoot the shit for a little while and talk about the manga and then take listener questions. And we've got a couple this week for you. So I think we'll have a good time with that.
My wife actually listened to the last episode.
Oh, she did?
While we were making a journey up to the holy land of Costco. It's quite a ride up north. And,
I was going to say, is that a long drive?
It's a drive. It's a drive. Okay. We try to go, maybe every 3 weeks or so. And I put it on, and I was driving, and I'm looking over, and it's playing for maybe 15 or so minutes, and I just see her like nodding, and her head's just going down. And I was like, "Honey, are you all right?" And she's like, "I'm so sleepy." She's like, the reverberations of your voice, and Steven is so calm. She's like, it's like a double punch of like sleepiness. She's like, you're so calming. And I was like, yes, we did it. We did the NPR sketch from SNL. We've accomplished sweaty balls.
Great.
Yeah.
That's our another alternate title. It will be Sleepy Time with Greg and Steven.
Yeah.
Great. So there's actually, I was going to say there's not a lot of podcast news, but that's not true. Actually, we just announced. I gotta do this for Zach here, and for Steve. They just announced the past few days a brand new podcast that Steve is going to be doing with who is it? I believe Tara Sands. I think is one of the 4Kids voice actors. And they are starting a podcast called 4Kids Flashback. And so I believe, it kind of came out of the whole Steve and Alex's whole forced to watch 4Kids, experience where they kept saying, man, wouldn't it be great to have somebody to talk to who, has the actual firsthand knowledge of all of this stuff and is able to answer all of these burning questions we have about how this happened. And as luck would have it, I think Tara managed to track Steve down somehow. She heard about it, and it was the start of this whole new venture they're going to do, where they're going to get she's got the ins for all of the the different voice actors and probably producers and engineers and things like that. So they're apparently going to be getting quite a treasure trove of information on what it was like with 4Kids Entertainment, and that should be some pretty fascinating stuff. I think it's fun to hear about things like that especially when it's like all the way in the rear view mirror, and you don't really have to worry about certain decisions or factors that are unavoidable at the time. But I'm really looking forward to hearing that.
How exciting is that? I am dying to hear the story behind why Anchor was erased from Luffy's T-shirt.
Oh, I didn't.
Like
I wasn't aware of that.
if they can find out the reason behind that, the entire thing will be worth it, because that has just been the biggest question mark in my mind regarding everything 4K. The hammer gun and stuff, I get it. I understand it.
Right, right, right.
Anchor? What?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I was not aware of this until like very recently. So this came as a surprise to me at least, and that that should be fun. Um, I think as far as podcast news, that might wrap it up. Um, in other One Piece news, it's been a few weeks now. With the what has it been? Actually, it's been about a month since the Netflix season premiered, and it still continues. The news cycle has died down a little bit, but it still apparently continues to put up very very strong numbers week to week, and accordingly, since the last time we talked, I don't think they had announced it yet, but they did say that they have renewed it for a second season.
Yay.
Yeah. And the writers' strike has concluded, so that removes, I think, probably the one big obstacle to getting work started on a second season. And I'm curious, Greg. Now, I'm not going to ask you. Obviously, I'm not asking for any details or any revelations or anything. But this is just a very general question. Since you were there for all 6 years or whatever of how all of the process that it took to get the first season written and filmed and produced and polished up and everything. Obviously, I would not expect 6 years again for the second, but based on your experience and what you saw, do you feel like, is this a thing that they're going to be able to just go like, boom, all right, here we go, we got everything ready? Like, how soon can we can we get people booked for shoots and things like that? Or do you think that there's still going to be a longer process as far as getting everything prepared for producing season two?
So yeah, just general question and general answer, to the best of my knowledge, would just simply be that I think everything is in line and ready to hit the ground running.
Cool.
That, as you said, obviously, fewer than 6 years.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
Fewer than 6 years, probably longer than one, if that narrows it down. But I would not expect the same kind of weight, especially with the momentum that it has gained with season one. And just recently, we were talking about the news cycle dying down, and while that is true, and while it did hold the number one spot for, I think, something like 3 weeks, before jumping down to number three, at least as far as I have read. I don't know if that was bogus numbers or something, but interesting in my mind is it got a shout out on the View from Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes, yeah.
Which is just mind blowing to see someone that you saw repeatedly on the big screen in movies, and you kind of viewed their world. Now they're kind of viewing your world, your little nerd hobby world,
Right.
on the View, and for the whole nation. And what's funny is super funny is in the promotion process for One Piece, unrelated to live action, but just things that I've been involved with over the years, like the not Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the New York Times ad, the Times Square promotion and whatnot that they did. It's Japan seems to latch onto these images of what's popular in the States, and what the information that they get that's filtered out to them as being major news outlets.
Hmm.
And that's why I think you saw some of these, to us at least, little kind of like question mark raising promotional
Hmm.
opportunities,
Hmm.
like the New York Times, like Luffy being in the New York Times,
Yeah, Times Square.
and Times Square, which is cool, but that's not something that you do for a series um, that has not gained ubiquity in the
Right,
United States.
right.
Like if you get, I don't know, whatever it was, like 20, 30 minutes in Times Square, whatever they paid for, which is remarkable.
Hmm.
But when you get that, people just kind of look up at him and be like, "What? I don't. Okay,
Right.
cool, something. All right, whatever." And obviously, you'll get people who are able to gather there, and they had a tremendous turnout for that, which is wonderful. I completely praise that. But like, it's basically for people who get it.
Right.
And if you're looking for a promotional opportunity, that ain't it.
Right.
Um, if it's not ubiquitous. And what I've always told them is, you guys, you really should go for morning shows. Like it's a bit of an odd fit,
Hmm.
but if you're looking for something that maximum people view
Hmm.
across the states, um, you're you really need to go for like a Good Morning America or something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, whatever. And they get this basically free promotion
Yes.
on The View from Whoopi Goldberg. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I sent it to Oda, and he was just like, holy crap.
Hmm.
So, yeah, what a wonderful story for them
Yeah.
to be able to have that.
The official, the Ichiro staff account, retweeted an article basically that, summed it up of, Whoopi Goldberg, says on the American talk show, The View. Um, and so, yeah, that's again, even though it's not where they initially would have looked, like that's the sort of validation that I think Japan loves to hear about from overseas, of like, oh, there's this famous show that people watch, and this actor, Hollywood actor, said, I love One Piece. um
Yes,
and
precisely.
it's like, it's so funny because it's like, okay, Whoopi Goldberg, like, people love Whoopi, she's been around forever. Again, like, if you think of the, specifically for the manga at least, the target audience of like tween and teen boys, of like, all right, how do we influence that, or how do we get them hyped about One Piece? Whoopi Goldberg being excited about it is probably like the last thing that they would find interesting or appealing, in terms of promoting the series. But if you are, if you're making this show, this live action, international production, in order to capture a completely different audience, and get people who would never have looked at it otherwise. I mean, you have to look at this as like, this is like mission fucking accomplished right here. If you can
Yes.
get, the normal daytime talk show people to be talking about it, just kind of unprompted, really.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic, that's a coup right there.
Yes. It really, that made my evening to see that.
Hmm.
And I think my only hmm uh hesitate, well, I do want to be careful to put this. My only disappointment, I guess, is the fact that there was a little bit of discussion there at the end that gets a little bit off of like, oh, how closely did you really watch? Like, I get that you enjoyed it, but
Mm-hmm.
there was some awkward question about like a peg leg. Like, were there any pirates with peg legs in it?
Yeah.
And like an awkward question to begin with and
Right.
field. But then she's like, "Oh, there were many peg legs, something, many pirates, many peg legs." And I'm just like, I don't think there were any, because that's kind of Oda's whole
Right.
deal with pirates, like why he doesn't do the eye patch thing,
Right. Right.
and the parrot on the shoulder is because he didn't want to draw that kind of pirate, and like,
Mm-hmm.
or he didn't want your main experience with the series to be that kind of pirate. So I was a little bit like, ooh, I don't know how closely you watched, but it sounds like you did enjoy it. So cool. Excellent.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of like expected banter, I guess, of like, oh well, if she's joking about Peg, okay, I'll just joke right back, and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't take that too seriously, but hey, like that's part of what comes with the water cooler shows is that not everybody actually maybe her family put it on and she caught little bits of it and said, hey, this looks fun, but wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily paying that much attention. But hey, when you get a big fancy production and you promote the hell out of it and you get it in front of people's eyeballs, that's some of the reactions that you'll get.
I think if you gauge my disappointment on that,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a 1 out of 10
Yeah, yeah.
disappointment. However, if you were to ask me how I felt about the honest trailer that came out for One Piece,
I
that
didn't even watch
is
this thing.
that turns it up to 11 for me.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and this is hard to. If you follow me on Twitter, I think you get my thoughts a little bit more. I was a little bit more verbose on it, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it's not a you're attacking something I love. It is the antithesis of that. I I've followed honest trailers for a long time, and I've enjoyed them. They are all kind of samey now, but that's
Mm.
also because movies are all kind of samey now. So um, that's I think where that stems from.
Mm-hmm.
But um, regardless, I have followed them through the years, and I do get a chuckle out of at least once or twice, a hearty chuckle out of their productions. So I've been so looking forward to this One Piece one because they usually have somebody on staff who is deeply familiar with the material, and this time they just they est the bed
Mm.
because they're pretty. I think I did look at the timeline. It was like a minute and a half into the video, and one of them is like, it's basically the Japanese equivalent of SpongeBob SquarePants, and I was just like, I'm out. That's it. I'm out. I'm out. You guys, like, no. There's nothing you got there for that comparison.
Mm.
And I even let one slide. Is there like an arrival that is way too serious? And they put Kobe on screen, and I was just like, okay, yeah, for season one, like that is I guess the rival, maybe a little bit more garp,
Mm-hmm.
but regardless, like they're going for the from equal origin, from a place of equal origin,
Yeah.
like kind
Sure.
of rival, and like sure, Kobe does fit that. Did you happen to hear or see who they compare Kobe to visually, like the on screen visual parallels they put on?
I don't recall.
Okay. So next to Kobe are Vegeta and Sasuke.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So I that I forgave them because I was just like, all right, that like you're reaching, but I get it, and I even
Mm-hmm.
chuckled. But then they dropped the SpongeBob thing, and I was just like, what? Where does this even come from? And somebody had a funny response on Twitter. They're like, well, with the Gear 5 fight, you really, you can't say no. But,
Yeah, that's what they meant. Yeah.
but big disappointment on that.
Mm.
Very, very, very sad about that because there was a lot of good potential. But, oh well.
Well. Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know if there's much more of a, I guess, press cycle to come about the first season in particular. Now, especially now that we have the second season confirmed, and the writers will be going back to work and so on. So, I would expect at some point, we'll kind of go dark for a while before we hear more news about a second season, but.
I don't know.
Um,
I don't know how much I can say if Zach is gonna put me through the ringer for saying too much, but I would continue listening to the One Piece podcast,
Mm.
the main podcast, the main week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we are the main weekly podcast, but I don't, it's the SGS, so we're in an awkward. I don't know. But the Zach cast, the Zach
Mm-hmm.
OPP,
There you go.
I would continue to listen to that. That may have some interesting offerings in the coming weeks,
Cool.
if I can tease that.
All right. Um, with that, I think we can spend a little time talking about the manga, since we haven't done that in a little bit.
The
Um,
manga.
so why don't we we'll give a chance to run a little ad here for the folks, and we'll be right back. All right, let's talk about manga. It's been a little while since we talked specifically about the chapters themselves and certain scenes, certain panels, whatever strikes our fancy. But I think we've agreed to stick to the last two chapters or so since Oda's most recent break, and so we'll just be talking about this stuff here with Kuma. We got some stuff with Kizaru and some stuff with Bonnie too, that we could talk about. Um, is there anything you want to start with?
Let's see. I guess since we do start out with Kuma basically in 1092,
Mm-hmm.
let's do some Kuma stuff. But I really did enjoy and feel like I got another side of Sakazuki with this
Mm-hmm.
whole Kuma interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I love how he ignores basically completely the pleas of the celestial dragons, which
Yeah.
is badass. That really does show kind of the side of him that I've been hoping to see, which is he gets that these people are awful and annoying, and he
Mm-hmm.
knows that he must like ultimately protect them, but it doesn't mean he has to succumb to their every single whim or plea for help. And he can filter out what is his job and what is them being them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's cool that he's not just a pleaser for them, or he's not a complete slave to their every single word. I did
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that, and they're shouting at him here, and he just completely ignores them and goes after the Kuma conversation, which also was interesting to me. Is he he yes, he does attack him. Yes, he does the like the whitebeard
Mm-hmm.
face smash to him. In the same vein, like he gives him a lot of leeway here, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of explain himself and figure out what's going on. And I don't know if that's from a position of just trying to pump him for information,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's a case of he knows who this person was, or he knows something about them, that's not, I guess, yeah, kind of holding him back from just destroying him in one
Yeah.
go. Like it looks very clear that he wants to stop him, not absolutely kill him, right down to the end. I mean, even the attack, it gets his foot down there,
Yeah.
because the next time we
Yeah.
see Kuma, he might be missing a foot, the poor guy. Um,
Yeah.
but
He's gonna have a little Anakin foot on the bottom with the lava.
yeah,
Yeah. It
so
there's a I guess if I had to like characterize the, I would say a conversation, but it's not really a conversation. It's very, it's just, it's just Akainu talking. But there's there's a little, it's a little poetic in a way where he's like, where does a man, where does a dead man with no free will and mind of his own, think he's going, and I don't know if he expects, I don't think he expects an answer, but it does seem like you get the feeling that like he's talking to someone that he he perhaps knew, formerly, or at least had interacted with, through presumably through the warlords, or maybe maybe it went back before that. I don't know. There's still a fair amount of Kuma that is mysterious.
Yes, yeah, and we finally get the continuation of that scene with Bonnie, where
Yeah,
she was tied up. And I've been waiting for that for years, over a decade, to get the what immediately followed their lines there.
yeah, and
And
then it turns out it's basically the same line that she was saying to, was it to Vegapunk? That he wouldn't leave me, on his own. He wouldn't do that to me.
yeah, so a little bit of insight into supposedly fully machine Kuma's actions and Bonnie. Now, what do you think? What do you think is driving original Kuma at this point? Do you think it's his identity, or sense of self, or is it machine at this point? Because this interaction also kind of informed my thoughts on it. In addition to what we've learned about what exists at Egghead.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's tough. I mean, it would be very much in Oda's style for it to be, some form of Kuma's original mind, winning through somehow, of overcoming the the state that he's currently in. But I don't know if I can see him like fully committing to Kuma basically being, a mindless zombie at this point. It's just it's really tough to imagine for me.
I can't imagine him being mindless zombie.
Hmm.
At the same time, the big it's between two. Is it programming? Was there a quote unquote kill switch that Vegapunk hit that just makes it head immediately towards the
Mm.
memories, the source of the memories,
Hmm.
to retrieve them? Because he had the setting for Sunny, right? Like, who knows how that was set in place, but he did stand by Sunny and guard the Sunny
Hmm.
for those 2 years, for the span of two
Yeah,
years,
that's right. That's right.
which is remarkable when you think about it, that the government allowed that to occur,
Yeah.
unless there was some way, because it's original Kuma.
Hmm.
That's a big deal. It wasn't like some pacifista. That means that from we don't know if he went somewhere, to fight in what was it, the kick in the pants war. I always forget the name of it.
Oh,
The
the Grudge War
the Grudge
stuff.
War.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know if like he went off during certain periods of the 2 years. It's not. It might not just be that he was just sitting there, but
Hmm.
still, that's something that they allowed to occur, and that's very strange. Especially, why would he have programming for that? So, I do think that whatever is happening here is somewhat related to that kind of quote unquote control
Hmm.
that could be going on the scenes behind, with Vegapunk as the so-called puppet master. But at the same time, you make a great point, is that I don't think Oda can resist the urge
Right.
to have this somehow be, like his spirit, his will coming through.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
Either way, I can see it being an interesting outcome. But yeah, I still don't know how to feel on this.
Yeah. I wish I could remember now what I saw a real kind of out there theory, about like that Vegapunk had infused him or given him the programming, or something of, God, what was it? It was like the original a personality that was inside the giant robot or something like that. That
That sounds like a me.
was.
Yes, I did have that idea.
You did have that, okay.
Yep. That was is that somewhere inside is stored in there. But that I kind of let that go because we got the room of memories. I forget the exact name of it. You'll have to forgive me, but
Yeah,
because we got that, I was kind of like, well, you know what? It doesn't really make sense if he has memories in both locations. So it could be like you say, like pure will. Like we find out, like Vegapunk is like shocked as everyone else that he's there, and everyone assumes that Vegapunk called him there. But the other question is, it has to be some sort of mechanism related at the very least, like a hey, come in this direction, because otherwise there's no way that he could have known on Kamabaka, right? Because it's like someone flips a switch. He's there, he's with them, and then instantly he's just like straining against the restraints,
yeah.
and goes out. So there is that. I would be shocked if it turns out that whatever happened at that moment was not related to Vegapunk.
Yeah, that just makes sense. Like story wise, that's where things are happening. That's what our attention is on. So, it stands to reason that there would be some link. Any thoughts on Luffy and Kizaru? They get their sparring on. We talked about the the kick, the 100 times stronger kick, which I
Yes.
believe was just before this, but we get some. I don't know if meaty is the right word, but I guess it's what passes for meaty fighting in One Piece these days, with trading blows and whatnot, between Luffy and Kizaru.
Yeah, the big one here for me was because I'm sure there's plenty to go on if you're power scaler fan, but the big move for me was cutting or rending Vega Force 1 in
Yeah,
half. That was massive.
yeah,
Not in terms of like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened because of that power. It's, oh my god, I can't believe this happened because I expected that to play some sort of role.
right.
So the fact that that's taken out is that was a major surprise for me because I expected that to have some sort of like major final blow or this or that. The only thing is, from this point, do consider where Frankie is and what he might be doing, because he could. You remember when he built that bridge in
And
Thriller
throw
Bark,
bark,
the
yeah,
very comical comic book style bridge that was
yeah.
built like in no time flat. I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to rig something or do something here that showcases what he can do and his abilities and his skills. So I am interested in that. Also, this opens the doorway for him to kind of want to follow Vegapunk's footsteps and create something similar to this, because I do see him operating or constructing or being an integral part of some sort of construct, if not docking construct, that is similar to this in by the end of the series for his final battle. So I do think this was important for him to be inspired to maybe do something similar or to do something even bigger and better. So that was for me the most interesting part, to see that occur. I thought that was that will be a big moment of inspiration for Frankie, and as a Frankie fan, that makes me happy. So
Yeah, I'm wondering too. Now, my mind is rolling. Uh, with speaking of Frankie and Vegapunk, I'm trying to guess, like in my head. I do think that for as much as Frankie has been kind of underutilized post time skip, and the way that a lot of like sort of secondary character development that you might hope for within the Straw Hats has not necessarily come to fruition. I do feel like we could still get something with Frankie and Vegapunk, but I'm not sure if it's like, is it going to be Frankie and Vegapunk bond? I mean, they can't do it right now because we're in action. You know, it's an emergency. Stuff has to happen. But okay, let's say when they do get away, is Vegapunk still alive for one
Yeah.
thing?
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah,
Yes.
like because Frankie, I mean, yes, he could have a great, like sort of bonding with a mentor sort of thing, and we've seen little flashes of that when he was talking about General Frankie and stuff. But the he could do that. But also, you also have to consider that Vegapunk, as we know now, he's he's the new Professor Clover. He's the guy who knows all the secrets. He has all the stuff that the government has decided needs to be wiped out. So then you have to ask, okay, is Oda going to is it time yet? Because once they survive this encounter, however that looks, there's got to be some more revelations about what's going on. So is Vegapunk going to be alive and be able to kind of set up the next phase of the story, maybe the final phase of the story, by explaining what a lot of these things are? Or is that something that he needs the Straw Hats to discover for themselves, and therefore Vegapunk needs to be taken out of the story in order, for them, for that to happen, for them to be able to do that organically rather than hearing it from him. And I think it could go either way, honestly. I'm really not sure how it's going to play out.
Yeah. And this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but particularly
Yes.
after the next chapter, that we was definitely left with that question. I'm sure
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
intentionally on Oda's part.
Yeah.
But yeah, the conflict with Kizaru is kind of taking a back seat in my mind, at least, and that's the 40-year-old, 20-plus-year One Piece fan kind of mind, compared to where is the drama going, and where are these character connections going. But it certainly is exciting. I loved the ending to the chapter, and it also was the first step in bringing together something that I felt needs to happen after the end of the last chapter, which is where Oda declared via Luffy that, once again, I think I mentioned this before, it's not Ore wa 100 bai tsuyoi, it's Ore tachi ga
Mm-hmm.
100 bai
Yeah,
tsuyoi.
we are 100 times tougher.
Yeah, so this is we saw what I mean. The the promotions were all over it, right? Luffy is at his peak,
Yes, yes,
for the
yes.
anime and everything, right? Like we saw what the peak is, and he'll outdo it again by the end. But
Mm-hmm.
but he's at his current peak. What we need to see now is what the crew is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him take out Kaido, perhaps a little bit too ambitious on Oda's part, a little bit too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But for the crew now, we need to see that, yeah, they're no joke as well. We know we've known throughout the years, even though it's been sporadic and the crew has not been together for the majority of the time. We know that they're capable of very impressive feats,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing on the same level of. I mean, Zoro aside. I mean, come on, Zoro aside.
Yeah.
Nothing on the same level of being able to take out like an admiral.
Right.
So this is where they need to prove. I mean, how wonderful would it be? How cathartic would it be for them to come back and in very similar circumstances to the presence of Sentomaru now on their side,
Mm-hmm.
plenty of Kumas as well, and Kizaru. How wonderful would it be for the crew to be able to take down Kizaru instead of just Luffy, steamrolling through him as he tends to do. So this is
Yes. I
why
was going to say
him
famous
arrive.
last words, Greg.
Yes. So this is why his arrival, Kizaru's arrival in the tower, is a big moment. Yes, moment for me, because now we have the chance, the opportunity for him to interact with the other members of the crew. And while the battle may take, will probably hit various locations, that they are now aware of him and that he is a threat and that he is here, so they'll be able to take steps to. I, obviously, I don't want to just say kill him, but to stop him.
Yes.
And you know, I'm on that Nami train for this. Those jewels, perhaps a little bit too hard, but I just like to think that Oda didn't use that panel space and then leave a bag of jewels in what close up for the viewer, with Nami saying, "I'll have to come back for them," to not be utilized for anything later on. But that's why I was happy how this ended up. And then I guess, just from my perspective at least, rounding it out, in a move that surprises nobody, the appearance of Nika, the sun god, appears to awaken the robot with the beat of its what is it?
The drums of liberation.
The drums of liberation. I was going to say heart of liberation. The drums of liberation, fueling the the robot that we learned worked on fire, which was exactly the element that Vegapunk has been trying to harness. So we lose Vega Force 1, but we gain Pirate Robo. Viking Robo, which is basically Pirate Robo. So
Indeed.
yes.
I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see it doing anything in the following chapter, but you know, it's got to have a dramatic moment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's Oda. The Oda weight.
Yes.
For 1093, Oda doing all these cover requests, and
Yeah.
you notice how many of them just recently, by complete coincidence, I'm sure, seem to be dealing with season one of
East
One
Blue
Piece,
characters.
East Blue characters.
Yeah. That's fun.
So it's a versus chapter, and those always make me happy, because that tells us that we basically get a nice, solid fighting chapter.
Yes.
And here is my complaint about the chapter. Some really entertaining action, to be sure, but precisely as you called. Not necessarily with the Kizaru fight, but for Elbaf, we were discussing, what's Elbaf going to be. And last time you mentioned that, since this is go mode Oda, and we're not doing as many dramatic 2-page spreads to show the height of things. Similar here is the action, is we're not doing as much 2 pages dedicated to showing a clear view of action. And to me, this felt sort of like the manga equivalent of shaky cam.
Yeah.
You can just barely make out what's happening. But for me, at least, the action was a little bit more difficult to follow compared to One Piece. Not to other manga. It feels like any other shonen manga kind of action scene here, with Kizaru kind of whipping around, flipping himself, and turning into the light beams and heading towards Luffy. So it checks all the boxes, but it still feels like a not a mere shadow, but it doesn't feel like peak One Piece in terms of how Oda is able to clearly depict action, particularly speedy and weighty action. I feel kind of like the fact that he has so much faith in the anime these days that he just kind of did this and was like, yeah, they'll figure it out.
Maybe it's kind of it's a unique situation too. I think where you have two characters now. It's kind of like in that the moment in Dragon Ball when you realize, oh, everybody can fly now. Everybody, all the combat is just going to be two guys in the air zooming around. And it does. I'm not sure if I can remember a too many fights in One Piece that are between characters like this, where the he does some stuff with momentum, right? Of like Luffy throwing Kizaru out to sea, and then Kizaru zipping back. But once they're kind of in the melee mode, there's really there's no ground, there's no background to kind of for them to work against. So it's just sort of weightless.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that
Yeah.
sentiment. That's a very clever parallel to bring up Dragon Ball. Is now that we have these flying characters, it makes things a little bit easier on the author as well too.
Sure.
Because they're not thinking about where is their position in the room, which is way more difficult than I think anybody gives them credit for. But yeah, I get the feeling that particularly Luffy looking out over the beams of light heading towards him, I feel like that would have been a 2-page spread, and it would have been Luffy looking basically as he does, like looking at with the I don't know searching. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah.
His right hand shading the sun, right?
Right.
Because it is so bright, and I get the feeling that he would have tasked his assistants with just drawing countless pieces of light, in the left hand page coming towards him in various states. It feels like that would have been a perfect, like, holy shit moment. And here it's, not even half a page.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just maybe it is a sign of, I guess, the importance to the series overall of these two particular characters clashing. Like, yeah, when Luffy first met Aokiji, there was a lot of stuff because it was very dramatic. It was, it was unprecedented in what we had seen before, and kind of shocking. It was supposed to be scary, and I feel like this is a very different situation, right? It's Luffy at his peak, like you said, and we shouldn't, we don't expect to be kind of scared by opponents anymore at this point. And maybe Kizaru being kind of the last one for Luffy to go up against like this is, there's a little bit of a old hat feeling to it, maybe, at least it subconsciously in Oda's mind, maybe.
There's a pun there, right? The old hat.
Yeah.
Straw hat. Okay. Um, I understand your point, and I agree with the fact that we don't necessarily need to feel fear, but we should feel awe. And
Yeah.
if Luffy's like, holy crap, which he is, and that's cartoon, mask aside, kind of reaction, the bug eyes and whatnot. We we need to feel that, and we don't feel it. It's just it's happening, and all of it like I said earlier, it feels like he's literally saying, like, anime, go, do the heavy lifting here, which is just like I don't like that because it's a year later, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
manga should be the quintessential experience, and B, because I don't want to feel I don't want Oda to have that feeling from this point going forward either. Even if it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lesser scene, like, I mean, a lesser clash, that doesn't seem like Oda's perspective on it. It should be, even if you have a non quote unquote main boss battle going on, you should still feel the awe of what's going on. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here,
Yeah.
and I'm
I
not.
mean, it's a 15-page chapter. It is a short one, and it's clearly in the middle of this sequence. So maybe maybe it just wasn't the right moment. Maybe it's coming in the next chapter, or he's got the big moments, the big hits are still to come, and this was just kind of an unfortunate side effect of a short week or something.
It's just a shame that I can picture how that looks, how it would have looked in my head if he went all out on that, and it's a shame. But I guess moving along, because we don't want to dwell on that too much, is one of the scenes that set Japanese Twitter on fire, at least.
Oh, was this?
Is where we see the Vega tanks, or Vega Tank 8. I'm sorry, Vega Tank 8. This line from Vegapunk. How did you enjoy translating this? 私が今助けに行くぞ、ボディ。あんな幼い子を見殺しにできるか?
Yeah, I got to talk about this on the manga recap last week, and how interesting that was. Yeah, I totally picked up on this this too, and I talked about the particular nuances of osanai, and particularly of that kanji, and the way that it's used, and the stuff that it implies. Not necessarily that it exclusively indicates like a certain age range or something like that, but in terms of the context of like what we believe the character to be, what did they say, like her visual age is estimated to be 24 or something like that. I think that's the number that they've used in
Correct.
the viewer cards or whatever. And yeah, like that doesn't line up the way that he says that. That doesn't match that. Even if he knows her, for going back a long ways, it doesn't seem in character for him to sort of infantilize her in that way, unless she is actually much younger than we have been led to believe.
So, interestingly enough, Shabondi, he just calls himself Shabondi or Reuter, the blogger, the Japanese One Piece blogger who does the Shabondi blog, has done the math. And he suggests that it is possible that Bonnie is within 7 to 10 years old in reality, given past statements. And he's quite clever. He went through a lot of the statements, which is like she's been to Vegapunk, or she's been to Egghead,
right,
previously, and that was X number of years ago. So she cannot be any younger than 7, given time span, and also to have been conceived as well. Went through all of that, and the span of the window is 7 to 10. And I thought, all right, okay, excellent job. I mean, Shabondi is amazing. He has a knack for these kind of things. But I went, does that fit her aura / personality and attitude? And I'm going back to even our first interaction with her on Shabondi, and just thinking like, yes, that is very childlike in the fact that she would definitely eat a lot to keep up with
girl.
like growing girl, and constantly, I guess, if Oda wants to do this, he could, is constantly like, in order to adapt to the constant age changing, she needs to eat to adapt to that change. Like she needs to have sustenance. Because
that's
like,
interesting.
You say puberty, right? And then when you go through puberty, you get like, you just like, I would go to Wendy's and just be like, I'll have 3 triple cheeseburgers, and it's nothing. So like he could absolutely go that route for explaining the eating and the desire for food, and also her attitude. This is like, you can look at this, you can make this this argument from almost any angle, but like her attitude does very much seem to be like a child who is
Mm-hmm.
trying to act older than they are.
Mm.
And one of the scenes that is most telling is when she views the Paramount War, and she
Mm-hmm.
has the tears. She's wiping away the tears going away. Obviously, we know now, not looking at Whitebeard, but looking at what they've done to Kuma, and she's seen some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She has seen stuff in life, and she is trying to be a very strong child. Um, and I think that might come from like the responsibility of royalty imparted on her by her parent or parents,
Mm.
uh, and everything seems to line up very well with her being quite young.
Mm-hmm.
So do look for that in the future. Somewhere between 7 and 10 would be a realistic age reveal for her, and I would tend to lean on the older side to that. Just myself, I do. She seems way more like a sophisticated 9 or 10 year old than a 7 year old. Seven just seems like a little bit too much to swallow, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you never know in this series.
Yeah, I really liked too, specifically stuff like the attitude, the way that she seems kind of snotty in certain ways, and um just sort of like the way that she interacts with people when she's like sort of verbally sparring with them and stuff, where it's like, oh yeah, this is a certain type of immaturity that is, that you look at it now and you're like, that's authentic. That's not just her being kind of an odd
Yes.
character. That
Yeah.
it's true to age. And
Does she use Zay? I forget if she uses Zay or not.
um
It's like an ender,
maybe
right?
I don't remember. That's
She
yeah,
does
that
use
would be.
powerful male language though.
Yeah,
And again, that's a very kind of childish thing
yeah,
to do in
sort of
Japan.
tomboy. Hmm.
Yeah, yes, yes. And I think that that's part of her putting on that front is because that's what you would do. You would imitate that kind of behavior and
Hmm.
those kind of attitudes if you're trying to be a captain of a
Right,
pirate crew,
right.
which coincidentally we haven't seen. I mean, and that hasn't
Yeah,
really even been addressed, has it? Unless I
no,
missed
no.
something. No, so we do know she's been on the run, but the crew has just seemed to be absent this entire time. So
Hmm.
I'm sure entirely by design. I'm not saying it's a mistake or anything, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. They're also somebody who could show up in a pinch, right? Um,
I suppose. Like, I don't even have a mental image of what her crew looks like. I don't think we've been
I just
intro.
know the dude who looks like a Hanna Barbera character. He's got like the cowboy hat and the tight, horribly fitting shirt. I,
Hmm.
he
Yeah, I
looks
don't
like
even
he's
have
gonna
a.
say like, "Well, where do we go next, boss?"
Nice. Oh boy. Yeah, that was
The
that was a lot
freaking
of fun to
light
think about.
shooting out of Luffy's nose, I'm sorry, is hilarious. And his
Hmm.
eyeballs, it's shooting out of his
Hmm.
nose and his eyes.
Yeah.
That's a great image.
Yeah, very much in line, within the tradition of One Piece kind of mimicking classic cartoon tropes, similar to Nora or Nola, I should say, with the Luffy running
That's
around in the
exactly
eyeballs and stuff.
exactly. Yeah.
It works on its own logic of that he swallows the light and then it comes out of everywhere in his face is good stuff.
Oh, and what an ending too. What a yeah, let's go ending with that order coming from I always want to
From
say
Atlas, yeah.
Atmos, Atlas. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, well, of course it's it's like, yeah, let's go, and then the last panel you're like, oh shit, he's here. That's right.
yeah. So
The
it's kind of like, well, what is he thinking there? Is he ready to move, or is he thinking, what's my next step, or I don't know,
hmm
or is he thinking, well, this is actually how it hit me. It in the moment, I feel like he's going. shit. Um, that's so that's how it hit me. It was a little bit of a less of an impact in that direction, but I I am very curious to see what happens next for this island.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's like is are we going to see the pacifistas like kind of make a dent in the for the good guys here before he springs into action and issues the counter command, or is it just going to immediately turn back on the Straw Hats and Vegapunk, if he's just going to immediately pop up and
I will say I'm a little bit tired of this back and forth. It's a little bit exhausting.
yeah,
Is it
yeah.
not? Is it just me? I feel a little bit like okay, it's in their hands now. It's in their hands now. It's in their. It's a little bit much. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's been, it's kind of ratcheting up each time we do it. It's there's a new character, or there's a new wrinkle to the thing. But yes, I fear that we have not seen the last pacifista authority chart, reminding you of the different levels of who is on the hierarchy where. Because yes, I think we're getting some more of that.
Agreed. It's in the cards.
Mm.
We can't plow through, but that's the manga
Yeah. Um.
recap.
Yes. The recap. Very nice. Yeah. We'll see what we get in the next batch of chapters. I'm sure we'll talk about those, but let's see if we can answer some questions.
All right.
SGS is for, SBS is all about questions, and the SGS is too. So I'm going to go to our SGS channel in our Discord for Patreon members, and we've got a couple questions there. You can send your questions as well if you are a subscriber on our Patreon and get all hooked up on Discord. We'll start with Nick Fridge, who says, do you guys have any, for lack of a better term, unimportant characters that you love that no one else really cares about? For example, I always thought Bogard and Sentomaru were awesome for some reason, so between the live action and the current manga arc, I have been spoiled.
Bogart, I feel, has a decent following. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
comparable to some of the other side, or who I would consider background characters. Bogart has always been someone who fans, at least in the Western fandom, I think
Mm-hmm.
have had a big following for. So I don't know if I would necessarily relegate him to that status. I would, but maybe that's just me being inundated with these characters in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about all the like one shotters like Lakuba, who bites off his tongue.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
but I interesting question. Do you have any thoughts on that, or
Man, I feel like I feel like the honest answer is probably not, but I'm trying to think of relatively minor characters that I've enjoyed. I don't know. It's really hard to say because, of course, the characters that you love that no one else really cares about. I feel like is a red herring because there's always somebody out there who is carrying the torch for various minor characters, and the longer they go without anything remarkable happening, the more they eventually get memed into prominence, like whoop slap. So.
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm trying to find a good space. I'm like, where does this where does their level of obscurity begin
Mm.
and end? And
I mean, I
to
guess obscurity you could just define as someone who has not really had a like a true role in the series, or like a drive that causes them to be in the spotlight in any way.
Okay, I think this is a good fit. It's not as obscure as, say, Iceberg's Secretary,
Hmm.
and it doesn't exactly line up either with like something that is that has as what I consider to be as big a following as Bogard. Also, congratulations, and I'm glad you got that outlet in the live action series. By the way, Nick Bridge. Um, I am interested in what. Oh God, I always get the name. Montbrun Cricket and his crew are up to.
Mm.
I would love to see what they're up to in the world right now, and what they're doing. I mean, we have a general idea of what they're doing, but they were a lot of fun. I enjoyed those his trio of that trio of kind of, I don't know how to describe them. Adventurers, romance seekers.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I
Dreamers, yeah.
dreamers. I'm just interested in what they're doing.
That's a good question. I don't know. I would probably have to like. I'm trying to think of who, who was my favorite Davy Back character. Maybe I don't know. Maybe like Portia or something. She's pretty funny.
Yeah.
He gave her for clearly a sort of cartoon, uh very very stereotypical, wacky racist type of character.
Yes.
He did give her some interesting angles.
Portia was
Um,
interesting.
hmm
How about the shark?
Yes.
The shark. By the way, does
Shark.
that
Oh
shark?
yeah.
Does the
Monda.
Yes? My God, when that when you see that, do you just hear in your head like the
No, no, I don't.
no the wacky races? I can't do it. You know the dog.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
I
Yeah.
can't do it.
The
But
Muttley's.
Muttley's
Yeah.
laugh.
Yeah. That's true. He's about the closest they have to. The animal sidekick character there. That's funny. All right, that one out of the way. Professional Poyo says, "Hey SGS, I know many people didn't love the
Oh,
Kobe."
may I stop you just for a
Oh,
second here?
sure.
Every time you say this, it fucking kills me, this
Oh,
name of this contributor, because my wife
uh-huh.
years ago at a Bolnenkai, like year end
Yeah.
party thing,
Right.
for my school, not even her own, but she got invited to it for my school, for like the youth club, which is like for teachers under 35.
Hmm.
And she got invited to this thing, and it was just a department. We played a dumb like Amada Kuji kind of game, which is just like a
Mm-hmm.
like it's similar to drawing straws, I
Right.
guess,
Right.
as the close thing. And so we drew straws to for a present exchange, and she got this stuffed animal, and it's this stupid looking brown like blob. I don't know how to describe it. It's like it looks like a Moomin character,
Okay. Yeah.
but like not even nearly as detailed. It has like two eyes
Mm-hmm.
and a little smiling mouth, and it's a little brown blob, and it has blob arms and then two little stubby blob legs.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And its name was Poyon, and she called it like the tag was on it, and it said Poyon, and she
Mm-hmm.
called it Poyo, and
Mm-hmm.
so it is a 40-year-old woman. I mean, she wasn't at the time, but still to this day, it is her absolute favorite, like best friend going into bed for
Wow.
bedtime. Poyo, and she's just a Poyo, Poyo, and she has like stories about it and like how it's a
Oh
fairy and
boy.
it lives in the woods and like and what it can and can't do. It's afraid of stairs, and every freaking time professional Poyo comes up, it kills me because all
Wow.
I can think of is
He's dressed
yeah,
up in a little suit.
he's just in a little suit, yeah, going to work, but he can't go down the stairs.
You can't go
Yeah,
down the stairs. All right.
yeah. I'm
Well,
sorry. Thank you, professional Poyo, every time you do it to me.
this Poyo says, I know many people didn't love the Kobe Marines subplot in the live action, me included. With the Alabasta saga being much richer with characters and plot lines, do you think making up subplots won't be that necessary for season 2? And yes, I know the GARP stuff was Oda's idea, but still, it just kind of comes off as padding.
The GARP stuff is not necessarily Oda's idea. It comes with his blessing.
Yeah.
But it is. I think that's an important distinction. Is
Yes.
it's not his idea. Um, what to say? There will always be an aspect of the series that is quote unquote new, fresh, different. The idea is basically my job is to reel that in and to say this ain't it, guys. You can't do that with these characters. These characters wouldn't do that. Please try to utilize them in a different way. I can only go so far with that. And I think after many years of discourse, what we came up with in season 1 was a huge success in terms of final product and in terms of, as I think I described last time, what it needed to be rather than what anyone wanted it to be. And I hope that will continue to go forward in season 2. However, I do hope that they continue to value the input from Shueisha and they don't get a little bit too much into themselves about the success. And I hope they don't go too far down that road. But the original angle will always be something that's there. However, you do make a good point that as some of the plots become more and more complex and they will build on each other, therefore encouraging the production team to explore those ideas because they are so integral to what occurs down the line. I think you will see probably. No, I think we'll leave it at that. That's the hurdle that they need to clear, and that's not an easy one, but that's what we're here to try and do. As for how I felt about the Marine side story, I don't love it. I also am not crazy about the GARP relationship being spoiled that early on. Yeah, it's one of the things that's not the greatest. However, regardless of what I think about the GARP material, being able to see more of Kobe and Helmeppo is just wonderful. To get an expansion of the Helmeppo story, and sure, there are things that are quote unquote impossible in the canon, such as meeting in Syrup Village, and meeting once again at the Kokoyashi village. But believe me, it is better than the alternative. What could have been. So yeah.
I think it's useful to kind of look with a proper context too, because I think everybody wants to to view the changes to the original story in terms of like, well, if this is different, then what's going to happen, in Ennius Lobby or whatever, like we're going to miss this other thing. And to look at it as far as how do we give ourselves like the right sort of story insurance to make sure that future seasons, in some cases, much future seasons will, be as cool as we remember them being in the original material. But you kind of have to look at it as like they were on a contract to do one season of a show, and obviously, if it worked out and it was successful, which it was, they'll get renewed, and now we have a second season, one more season, and you really have to maximize what you do within that time. It doesn't do anyone any good to hold back too much and have the end result be unfocused, or to not feel like it's as much of a complete package as it can be. And so I think that, explains a lot of the rationale of like, well, we wanted certain plot lines to continue specifically through these set of episodes. And, I think that's something that's kind of unavoidable because that's how these things are produced. It's not like drawing a manga where you just keep drawing it years and years. And eventually, you have a big long story. You have to do it in these chunks of seasons. And
that
that's
are not
always
guaranteed.
yes, exactly. And so, that's always going to be, I think, a force that kind of shapes the approach to writing, for one season particularly.
I agree. That's a very astute ascertaining of the situation. Assessment of the situation.
Thank you. Wisdom Pythagoras says, hello, SGS. With how far we are into the series, and in particular the Egghead arc, where do you stand on the old fan favorite idea of the crew going to space or the moon? Do you think the book has closed on that adventure?
I wonder if we're not on the cusp of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, we are in the, island of the future and it's super advanced robots from the past and things like that. So it certainly seems like if it is going to be a feature in the story, this would be the ideal place to start it.
Let's say if Luffy being able to awaken ancient technology opens up a whole bunch of doors. I was about to say, if Vegapunk survives this, then I can see us going up at pretty much any time. If he doesn't survive this, then I think this is like their one opportunity for it. But on the other hand, if Luffy's able to awaken ancient technology just by being Luffy, then I do think that door is certainly open. As far as the action in outer space, quote unquote action in outer space, more like characters, coming to where we are in the story, coming to our perspective, I think that's possibly more likely at this point. Whereas we will certainly get a story in space. Whether the characters go there or not is entirely up for question. My whole big theory about this is what if space is, or at least travel between planets. What if that's, One Piece babies, right? If you cover the ocean and you do what you will with the world.
Right.
I don't want to get too into that, but you want to affect the outcome of the world, which Luffy does not want to, but I'm saying as a story, dramatically, etc., etc.
Exactly.
Where do you go from there? And I guess your next place is literally off planet. So who are or would it literally be space pirates? You're whatever. Let's admit that One Piece will keep going like Dragon Ball at this point. The timeline for that is uncertain. Oda's involvement is probably not given. I mean, supervising, sure, but it is too large to simply end and then end for good, unless Oda is a first and also decides to put a lot of people out of work very quickly. The series will continue in some incarnation sometime after it concludes. What form it takes, that's what everyone should be asking. And going off planet, I think, is a good time for that to maybe do that. Instead of islands, you have planets. Which sounds a little bit like Dragon Ball GT, but does it work more in Oda's world where, we're not destroying planets with some of our weakest characters? Then yes, I think it does.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it checks those boxes of, well, how do we do something that seems even cooler and more wild, that is a natural evolution of, what came before it. Could happen. Let's see. Our last SGS on Discord comes from one of our patrons. That's the name.
Hey.
who says, "Dear OPP Sensei, Greg, can you use your position as One Piece live action series advisor to get me a job working on the series? And can my role be Emily Rudd's manservant? Sincerely, pen name Sanada is my moral compass."
Kompas quarteterio.
Your compass is broken.
I'll see what I can do.
That was my answer was going to be like, yes, he can, but he won't.
Oh, thanks for the laugh. Laugh.
All right. We do have some questions though on Twitter as well, where we use the hashtag SGS Sensei, and we usually put up a tweet about it a day or two before we record. So keep on the lookout if you're interested in submitting a question that way. All right, let's go through these. Raftel Rick says, "What are both of your best guesses on when OP ends?" Well, you, I believe, have a project relating to this, right? That you keep teasing.
Yeah. It's still going on. I'm in the fun part now. I'm in actually the theorizing end of it right now. So I'm actually going through actually some of what I was just talking about where does One Piece go from here. As I start at the end and I'm working my way back, and what do we have to go through and how long will all of that take, or do I think that will take? So I won't get into any specifics of that because that would be ruining this project I've been working on for over a year. But suffice to say, and I've said it many times here, but if you haven't heard it, is I think we still have a long way to go. Years more than year or two left. Yeah. Certainly more than the 11 months that Oda gave himself.
The last time he. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't know. It's hard to say because every time I feel like we're getting closer, I feel like also, it's just the publication pace seems to dip as well, which, that's on the mind, particularly right now, hopefully, with the Netflix series release in the rear view mirror that will hopefully get a little bit quicker chapter releases from Oda, but that's not something any of us can influence, of course. DC at Retro Cabal says, "Did Zoro ever get an Oda box? When we first meet him, it didn't say his name like the other Straw Hats. Thanks, guys." That seems like a pretty
I don't recall
answerable question. Yeah, I mean, if he did, it would have been when we see him tied up on the Marine base, right? But I don't know if we
thinking
got
back to that. I don't have one in my mind. I don't see it in my mind's eye, so I guess we don't. But I mean, did he ever get one? I mean, certainly, because they get I mean, even when they got their bounties back in Water 7, they had Oda boxes there, and they've had them since.
Right.
So has he ever had one? Yes. But has he ever had like did he have the introductory one?
Introductory one, yeah.
I would say maybe no. From memory.
Yes, of course. I am. I'm tethered to my computer with my headphones here, so
I've got it. I've got his intro right here. Yep. No, he does not. He definitely. I mean, in the first one.
Okay.
Definitely does not. Did I see? Even Helmeppo gets one, right?
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
That's
what's killing me is my wife recently caught up with One Piece. I think she took like a year and a half break or something. And she got to the scene where post Wano, where they're on board, and Nami has Luffy tied up in the cage, and he's all beaten up and bloodied.
Yeah.
And the Oda box is, Yonko Monkey D. Luffy.
Yeah.
It's one of the best uses of
Uh-huh.
the Oda box. And then he
Yeah,
gets it
yeah.
again later in the same. Oh my god, it's so dumb.
Hmm.
Such a good stupid idea.
Our next question here. Actually, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this one. This is from Nacho at Notchworks, who says, "Does Oda answer questions from readers about his writing? I love the SBS, but sometimes I would like to know, where did he struggle the most? I feel Dressrosa may be Oda's mirroring knot from A Song of Ice and Fire. Many characters had to meet, and it was hard to tie up." Yeah, so
Yeah.
I recognize that phrase, which if you are not a Game of Thrones follower, that was the Myronese Knot was it was a title that George R. R. Martin gave to a particularly tricky like portion of the story around the city of Marine, where he needed a bunch of characters to congregate in order to move the plot forward on something, and he apparently had a lot of trouble getting them to finding a way to get them all together. So I guess I would characterize it as a tricky a very tricky position to coordinate as far as getting all the players in place.
See, what they needed were sea stone covered ships. That would have done the trick. That would have gotten them right where they needed to go on time.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, no, yeah. Let's see. Actually, I got thinking about Game of Thrones so much, I forgot the question. What was the question?
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm
yeah, I
sorry.
was about to say, to answer the original question, does Oda answer questions from readers about his
Readers about
writing?
writing.
I feel
Writing.
like that's probably asking a little too much vulnerability on his part. Like I think he's fine with, and he'll make a joke about like if he forgets a scar or something, or if he does something silly, he'll come up with a funny rationale for why something was off in a little detail in the art or something like that. But I do feel like I wouldn't expect him, or most writers to open up and be like, oh yeah, this idea was not a good one. I really kind of flubbed that one. That's I think it's asking a little too much humility or humiliation of them to have them admit to stuff like that.
A lot of this. First of all, the answer is yes. Like he can and he has, but it's all about the timing.
Mm-hmm.
And the timing is never on your end. It is entirely up to the roll of the dice and where the series is. Is it? There are questions that Oda would love to answer, but it's not the time in the series to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Or he doesn't feel that he's cleared a certain part of the story dramatically. That answering that question would have the most impact. A lot of that thought does go into which questions to answer.
Mm-hmm.
So while I would definitely suggest that you uh, ask those questions, do not hold back from asking them. Whether he answers them or not is entirely up to how lucky you are in timing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're able to galaxy mind, like, okay, we're past this point in, like, he just revealed this part of the story, like about the sea and devil fruits, and why it is, if you see that he has a big reveal, um, maybe that's a certain time, like, okay, he revealed that, so maybe I can ask about this aspect of it or that
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it. And I mean, certainly asking about very specifically about Dressrosa in the past is, since that's all done, like, yes, he's free to answer questions, but it's as Steven said, is does he necessarily want to show you that section of the sausage factory?
Mm-hmm.
Does he want to show you how this part or that part is made? Um, it is showing some vulnerability, which he is not afraid to show.
Mm-hmm.
And he often does that with humor. But there are times when he'll get a question, and you're like, "There's no way he's going to answer that," and he'll give you like half a page of SBS. detailing it. One of them, I think, in particular, was the is One Piece really ending? And that
Yeah,
was that
that's true.
was that was submitted by Perry Bentham, whom I actually know in real life,
Hmm.
and it was a genuine question, and he answered it pretty genuinely.
Hmm.
Is a good answer. Completely wrong, but it was a good answer. Um, so yes, the short answer to your question is yes, he will, but it's all about the timing. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of that stuff will come to the forefront after the series is completed. In the interviews that you'll see in the years that follow the end of the series, particularly the anime, since that kind of puts the stamp on it. I think you'll see a lot of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, and this is not unique to or necessarily restricted to Oda himself. I think a lot of authors would be like this too. Be as you said, because this is an ongoing story, and there's still more to be told. I think he like any author, having gone through the process of writing it and remembering, areas where the story felt like it was just magical. It all came together versus parts where you have like, oh, how am I going to make this work? He knows the parts that gave him fits and were really troublesome, and I'm sure hypothetically he could tell you what those were and talk openly and frankly about what was tricky about them, but he's never going to do that when particularly when there's the chance, when people are still enjoying it. In other words, when there's more to be enjoyed by it, where not having the author's personal thoughts is a benefit to the reader because you don't have to second guess any of his decisions necessarily, or at least you don't have to second guess the ones that he didn't want you to second guess. Where like did certain things, did he do this on purpose or was this a happy accident? Well, it's more fun probably for the reader to be guessing that than to be told by the author, yes, I did, this was meant to be this was meant to be that. There's a lot of stuff that leaving it up to the fans to fill in the blanks or to wonder on their own, I think it has a great value to an author, and I don't think
Yes,
that he would ever want to spoil that.
precisely. Um, I mean that goes probably harder into romance and power scaling. That's a
Hmm.
tough pill to swallow for those fans. Um, but
Yeah.
but it is the fact that you're discussing those things and making a deal of them. And I'm not saying that in a derisive way. I'm just saying you are discussing them, and it is a big deal. That is why they won't be answered, because you
Hmm.
are discussing them, because you are
Yeah.
making a deal of it, which is great. It's not a bad thing.
Hmm.
It's just because it's what is it, not self-replicating, is it self, it's a self-propagating
Hmm.
issue, is like people are thirsty for the answers to these questions, but because of that thirst, you will not get them.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think we have one more person here, but they had a list of questions, so maybe we
Oh,
can get through these quickly. B at Champagne Brokey says, my number one question for you guys is, what island do you think is after Elbaf? Hmm. Laughdale?
I
Unless there's
mean,
some very brief stop after that, but
see,
I
I
can't.
always thought that Elbaf was the brief stop before
Yeah, right, sure.
Laugh so um, I would have to imagine it's Laugh if or hmm. So the road poneglyphs are bringing us supposedly to what Raftel is, right? The location of Raftel.
Mm.
From that point, is that simply Raft? The name is going to kill me. Is that simply Laugh-Tale? 20
Mm.
years, folks.
Yeah.
Is that simply Laugh-Tale itself, or is that a jumping point to go to various locations that make up Laugh-Tale and
Yeah.
come together to be Laugh-Tale? And I would say Well, let's leave it at that. I'll just keep myself not censor myself, but try to keep it brief because that's a rabbit hole that we could go
Yeah,
down
that
for a
is.
long
It
time.
really is. Yeah, that's my. I feel like I can't see anything else in between, or just anything more in general, unless we're talking like 1 or 2 chapter like brief cameo type of stuff. Second question: what pieces of Norse myth will be used in Elbaf? Well, we
I
already
mean, we
know
got
there's
Loki.
Prince Loki. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Probably the trees, right? The what's the Yggdrasil?
right. Yggdrasil. Yeah.
Yggdrasil.
The
You
world
would you would
tree.
be the expert on this, right? After
A little
after
bit more.
Finland.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a mythological series, but yeah, there's a few mentions. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, any of like the real obvious stuff, and I don't. Again, it's Oda's style is not to necessarily like take these ideas and just replicate them whole cloth. It's usually like he'll include references to them, but it'll always be in some weird and silly way or inconsequential way that you wouldn't expect. Like maybe we'll see a guy who has like a really dinky hammer, but that's supposed to be Mjolnir or something, something silly like that.
Fenrir is cross-eyed.
Yeah. The Fenrir is just like a very silly like
Derpy
tongue
dog.
hanging out. Yeah, very derpy dog. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Fenrir, you know what? Fenrir is because it's like a wolf. It's a wolf, right? It is a
Yes, yeah.
wolf. Fenrir. What if it's just like? What if it's a fucking poodle? What if it's a giant fucking poodle with fangs
Yeah,
and
there
it's
you
got the
go.
ridiculous poodle haircut?
That's that's the kind of thought process I think he likes to go through. That
Fenrir
would
the
be
poodle. I love it.
that would be
Okay.
fun. All right, number 3. What do you think Cross Guild and Aruge's role will be in the battle for the One Piece?
Cross Guild and what? I'm sorry.
Aruge.
Uruj. Uruj. I mean, I think I've spoken about this before. Aruj, I can see coming in as early as right now in the story, with the crew looking for a way to get out. Like an easy way out is simply up.
Yes, that's true.
Now, Aruj will definitely play a role in Elbaf. That is to me that is in stone. That is, I'll put my foot in the ground on that one.
He's running out of time to make an impact here.
He's running out of time to make an impact, and everything else just lines up too well with what I've talked about with Mom and resolution with Mom occurring there. With his history with the family as well, which is also why I think it would be a good way for them to make their escape. Now, the question is, what would Rouge, what would he gain from helping the Straw Hats escape? And you have a little bit more leeway for making an argument for that with him having taken out his alliance having taken out Mom. So he has he might feel some respect towards him in that way, or what's the word I'm looking for? He might feel indebted to him in some way, but it's still a little bit rough. But he'd have to have a pretty good motivation for wanting to do that. I see Rouge coming in soon. As far as Cross Guild to me, you know what Cross Guild mainly is like Crocodile is back in because Crocodile's Crocodile. Crocodile's a great villain. He's an awesome villain.
Yes.
Uh, but it creates an opportunity for Zoro to fight with Mihawk.
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, they needed a good reason to clash because without him being on board the Blackbeard Pirates, it's like why would they have a thing? What if their end battle is not a 1v? I mean, it will eventually end up being a 1v1.
Yes, it has
But
to
what
be.
if it starts out as a trio? What if it starts out as the three of them against each other? Of course, by the three, I mean I'm referring to Shiryu, of course. I can't see any particular aspect of that being a team up victory, as I previously did for for Luffy versus Kaido. I dug my heels into the ground very hard for a team up victory there. For a swordsman battle, that does not make sense. I'm sorry. That kind of shared victory does not make sense from the samurai, the bushido aspect, and not something that Oda is interested in doing. However, if it starts out and they're fighting each other and then they get separated, something happens and they have to finish each other 1v1, then yes, I can see that happening. But cross guild basically seems to be an excuse for basically for to bring past villains together, because the end of the series is going to be an amalgamation of the characters we've met over the past 20 years. Cross guild is an extremely convenient medium to get even characters like Kudo, who might have to be doing kind of bounty work just to survive, which is a great punishment for him, by the way. Yeah. Krieg might have to be roped into it as well for having been defeated. It's just a fantastic medium for gathering characters, which is again why yes, Oda has these knots in the story, like George R. R. Martin. By being a goofy manga, he can avoid a lot of those issues by creating these kinds of organizations almost on a whim. Almost on a whim. So that's why George R. R. Martin has a much more difficult job, because he's writing a realistic dark fantasy story.
Yes. Yeah, interesting stuff. Number 4 question. When will we... Oh, you have more thoughts?
No. I was just like, whoa, they keep going. Cool.
Yes, yeah, there's 2 more. All right.
Oh, well.
Last 2. When will we see Imu's face, and is it the one on the Arc Maxim?
I see what they're going for there.
Are they referencing the giant gold...
The giant gold face.
Well, the Maxim was... Well, I mean, I don't know who designed it, but Eneru built it, right? Like that wasn't like a thing that he found, was it?
He built it, yeah. Because all that gold was taken from the city.
Right.
It was,
Right. So at least in terms of like direct logical connection, unless there was some personal...
I think you're referring to, does he have knowledge of the past, right? Because he knew about the fairy birth. And we also have those mysterious monkey statues as well. So did he have knowledge of this sort of deific character? I don't necessarily think so. If that turns out to be the case, then it is most certainly a retcon. Because there's no way that Oda specifically drew that then and was like, I want it to be the end boss, because it just looks too much like a generic Japanese viewing of like what an idol should look like, which I don't know if that makes sense. But like, if you ask a Japanese person to like draw, what's that thing that it's like the man on the moon, I forget the name of it. I heard it recently because they referenced it in Final Fantasy 14, but it's like some lunar face or some face. It looks almost like the mouth of truth kind of thing, and it looks way too close to that, like a generic look for that.
Yeah, I wonder too, because I'm looking at the pictures of the Arc Maxim, and it does have the kanji for kami, for God, there. Which, I mean, we talked about the Imunerona, the way that even the name is a pun on, Buddhas and God. But I would just assume that that's just because that's the common theme of, very grandiose characters who have a God complex, and not necessarily a specific link between them.
Yeah. So going on that, the way I think that would be retconned is like Oda is constantly looking back through his work. He sees that and thinks it would look really cool if like I made a character who had similar features to this, because at the time I do not think that it was modeled after that at all. But you also look at the trials. The trials also have similar faces in front of them, as I recall, at their entrances. I think they have the same kind of facial. Now, if he does that, it's almost like It's almost like a Dio, like looking at those very like luscious lips. Like I can see it. I can see it having the like similar characteristics. And
Mm.
Oda having looked at that and said, I will base the idea of this design off of what I did here, because
Mm-hmm.
it would look good. It would tie things together nicely. And if anybody should have that kind of information about what the past was like, it should be Enel, because whatever he stumbled upon or whatever he got information about Fairyverse from was correct. So it would make sense. But I don't see it as having been anything where he was like 20 years ago, he was like, I'm going to draw this and this is going to be the end boss.
Yeah, yeah,
It
no.
looks too much like a generic Japanese idol, like
Mm-hmm.
right out of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and that almost certainly that would have been an influence that he was looking at or thinking about more so than what can I do in the far future of
Yes.
the story. Last question is slightly related from B is if Emu is a fighter, what do you think their power is? Now we saw, of course, you could argue perhaps kind of an impressionistic scene, but I think we definitely got some major hints as far as what Emu's power could be in that throne room scene a couple months back.
Do you have any ideas on expanding that? Because I remember at the time I tried to write an article on it, and
Mm,
they would not clarify which shadow was which,
mm-hmm.
very
Yeah, for
specifically.
for the for the five elders.
Yes, for the five elders, and there's the one on the wall, right? The one at the top,
Yes.
and that my assumption is that is Emu. But when I
Mm-hmm.
asked them, can I confirm whether that's Emu or not, they said it's drawn to not be easily
Mm-hmm.
understood or
Yeah.
extrapolated. So
Right. Right.
we're not going to answer. Which I don't know. That in and of itself leads me to believe that it is Emu, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
transformation is. So whether that's Zone or not remains to be seen. But if it is indeed Emu, it does something strange in that it seems to devour the fire
Mm.
that Sabo puts off.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's a little tricky because obviously we know it's not darkness. That's taken, and Shadow was Moria.
Moria.
Was that? Yeah, that was Shadow.
Yep.
Um, so if what we saw is like indicative of what the power actually is, if it wasn't just sort of like a weird nightmare sequence on Sabo's part, um, it's got to be something else, which is, boy, it's hard to guess.
You can make any argument at this point. You can make an
Oh
argument for
yeah, yeah.
all three very easily. Um,
And
my only one being
with the
is
way that Oda has, like, you think of all the different variations of like Stone Man or Stone Assimilation Man or Island Man. He can twist a concept until he finds something that he needs to use it for. So I wouldn't rule out something related to darkness or shadows, I guess I would say.
yeah.
I don't know about specifically calling Emu a fighter, if Emu is a fighter. Because yeah, we can talk about the devil fruit powers, but as a combatant, I don't know. I
They like sharp things. They like swords. And
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I tend to view I would view Emu more in the Orochi vein, as far as like someone who probably has a cool power, but maybe is not like the biggest badass to walk the earth. Um, just because I don't know. I don't know. I'm still not on board with the idea of like the secret bad guy that we haven't seen yet is also like the biggest badass in the world after all of the other characters that we've seen. But that may just be me having to get over a certain hang up or not.
Either way, I still think that whoever they are, and regardless of whether they're a fighter or not, Luffy and Blackbeard would probably have to cooperate on some level to be able to take it down.
Yeah, I mean they've we know that they're symmetrical in certain ways, right? Luffy and
Yes.
Blackbeard, and that could give them, a shared interest in terms of stopping Emu.
You either have darkness winning or you have light winning, and that is every story ever told. One side must win. If Oda is to be the original one, if he's to break out of the 6 stories that have ever been told, then darkness and light must cooperate to destroy the system. Darkness and light being separate is what has kept the system in place. If those two combine, then you can take that out.
Well, that's you know what? That's a great thing to ponder over the next couple of weeks until you hear from us again, because we've been going for almost 2 hours now.
Yep.
And I think that is a great place to wrap it up.
And here I was afraid we weren't even going to make an hour.
Yeah.
Thanks for trusting us.
We'll always make it an hour.
We did it. Yeah. All right.
This has been the One Piece Podcast, episode 789 for the week of Monday, October 2nd, 2023.
Hey, 789.
789, yeah. I forget what number SGS this was, but 8, 9, something like that. We're in there. Yeah, thanks for chatting with me today, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for calling me up. This was good. We should do this again.
Yeah, maybe in a couple weeks.
Maybe when One Piece is on break.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, so I don't think I talked about the news at the top of the show as far as the podcast goes. So keep an eye out for the 4Kids. What was it called again? Now I forgot. Our new 4Kids podcast, and definitely keep an eye out for future episodes of Opla, our One Piece live action little side project that we've been doing. We have some very cool guests lined up, and I am really looking forward to hearing some of those folks and what they have to say.
How crazy would it be if we got Oprah for Opla?
Oh man, we got Whoopi. Let's get Oprah.
Whoopi, yeah.
She's next. That would be great.
The book club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. We got the Netflix show. Let's get the book club. One Piece manga on the book club. Yeah, I think that about does it for us. We'll be back next week with obviously the return of the manga. We'll have some anime recap catch up, I'm sure, and whatever else comes along. But until then, you can find me on Blue Sky at stephenpaul.bsky.social. That's kind of where I am posting now. You can still find me on Twitter at Translatosaurus, but I'm not really tweeting there anymore. What about you, Greg?
Me, you can find me on Twitter at Ochimusha108. And yeah, I think that's about it these days. Trying to keep a lower profile somewhat, but
yeah.
Oh, and I guess I have some YouTube videos up as well. At also Ochimusha108.
Cool. There we go. Yes, you know where to find the podcast, of course, at One Piece Podcast, just about anywhere. I don't remember the phone number. I don't think anyone actually calls it anyways. So we'll skip that part.
Call anytime.
Call anytime. Just pick up the phone. Just call.
Someone.
Somebody. You never call. All right. All right. Good talking to you, Greg.
You as well, Stephen.
All
And
right,
you as well,
folks.
Simba.
Yeah, he says bye-bye.
Meow.
Meow.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So we're doing animals in sixth grade,
Okay.
and like talking about animals and the Japanese school teaching English and whatnot. And we're talking about cats. We're talking about the sounds that animals make abroad, and we get to cats. And there's this one girl in the class who is an absolute cat fiend.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher was like, "Can you speak cat?" And she was like, "Yeah." And then she was like, "Well, can you speak with Greg Sensei?" And she was just like, "Uh-huh, uh-huh." And she doesn't say anything. She just shakes her head. And I just went, "Meow." And she went, "Meow." And I went, "Meow, meow, meow." And she went, "Meow." And I was just like, "This is surreal. This is why I went to college." Good things. Good things. All right. So sorry. Yeah. Cat story.
Cool. See you next week, everybody.
Laters.